While pastoring in equipment, my dad, Reverend J.D. Ross, felt the leading of God to begin a new work in Tyler. A small frame building on 2nd and Kennedy was chosen. Meantime, June Council was in Wichita Falls. Tom was ordained. Then, in between services, he received a telegram telling him that he was fired. Dad and Mother invited us to help them, with Dad and Tom being co-pastors. Meeting in that very small frame building, our first service was the first Sunday in July 1965 with 8 adults, 6 were family, 5 children to form Grace Chapel. It soon became obvious other arrangements would be needed as expected growth began. After several months and about 30 adults, there was $1,300 in the building fund, and the people voted to use that as far as it would go toward a sanctuary. Plans had already previously been made. The 2 guys quit their secular jobs and began the work with men helping as they could. After the foundation was finished, there was more money to keep going, and each week the money kept coming in, and work never stopped until it was completed, with very little indebtedness. Back to Grace Chapel, always in our hearts. Getting ready to move in 4.5 hours, and having bought a house in our price range and money for mortgage payments made, Tom was able to get to go back to work for Loggins Construction Company. A Sunday school wing was desperately needed. Even his office was used for a classroom with students sitting on his desk. On a Sunday night, the church voted to have the frame building moved by anyone who wanted it. Monday morning, he was in the office when he heard someone come in and say, "Is anyone here?" It was an African American pastor, and having invited him into his office, he said, "I was driving down the street and the Lord told me to stop and ask you if y'all would sell that white building to our church and we'd have it moved." They bought it, had it moved, made the repairs needed, and it's still being used. The year was 1980 when Grace Chapel had outgrown its original location. Because of a realtor in the church who had become aware that nearly 15 acres on Highway 69 South had just become available, and knowing it would be snatched up immediately, called the pastor. And on Saturday morning, the men walked over the property. A meeting was called Sunday night following the service, and with a 100% vote to buy this land, a contract was drawn up that evening and delivered Monday morning before it ever reached the list. The property was paid for miraculously within a year. Now it was time to build and move. The church body voted to build a multiple-purpose building first, with the gymnasium as being the auditorium. Classrooms were around the perimeter with a large kitchen and fellowship hall, and also there was a second floor with additional classrooms and later a large youth, all this providing everything needed. The only problem was the interest rate was at an all-time high. He refused to lead the congregation into an indebtedness with this interest rate. One day, he felt God telling him to go now to East Texas Savings and Loan. Argued that Mr. Chesley would be out for lunch. The Spirit kept telling him go now, so after exhausting all reasons for not going, he went. Walking in the door, the receptionist said, "Are you wanting to see Mr. Chesley again?" He told her yes. Mr. Chesley heard him and stepped to his door and said, "Preacher, are you still looking for some money?" The "yes, sir" response brought the questions of how much and at what interest rate do you want? He gave him the amount and the desired interest rate, and these words came forth, "Preacher, you got it." The first property sold. After worshiping in the Family Life Center for 3.5 years, it was time to build the sanctuary, seating 450 with offices and classrooms surrounding it. But if ever he said that he had heard God speak to me, he said, build it debt free. It was a huge undertaking for him as the only carpenter and superintendent, but he had men who were willing to help in any way they could. After 18 exhausting months, we had our first service in a debt-free edifice. None of this could have been done without the loving support of the congregation.